Hello guys, let me first start with wishing you Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and thanking you very much for supporting this channel and making this purchase, and I hope you're going to consider this in the future. This reading is going to consist of two parts. First part, important one though, even though it seems to be kind of like a little bit generic. Why is it important? They're general energies. So what does that mean? So let's say we want what we want, right? Let's say we want to buy tiles for the bathroom. So we know what we want to buy, we know our budget and everything else. So we kind of like know our little domain. But there is like a bigger picture. Who is the supplier? What can be done? So you have to work within that system. And this is like what this part is going to tell us. I also drew a rune just to give me basically some kind of like feel for it, and we are going to go in few other cards. These like really important decks. This is Osho Zen. He's like a famous I believe Japanese philosopher. We have karma cards and we have law of attraction. So for example, right, if you for example want to win lottery and you want to send those vibrations out and you have all the negative people around you, that's what's going to tell you. So literally all you would need to do is like stay away from that kind of like stuff, right? So the rune that we got was Vunya reversed. Vunya is a really good rune, even when it's reversed. So this is the rune of happy endings. We are coming into the basically cycle numerologically year number 12, which is basically cycle number 3 numerologically. I'm going to speak a little bit about that later, because oh my gosh, like year number basically 11 is tough. Year number 11 is challenging us on every single thing, and mostly on the things that actually we don't really want to be challenged. So that's something really to take in account. So this is talking about kind influence. This is talking about, hey, look, things are actually going to turn out well, right? It's encouraging rune, but when it's reversed, it kind of gives a little bit of kind of like caution that, for example, in terms of love relationship, maybe we are going to idolize someone. You know what? I say, heck, you know, why not? Usually we are so, I don't know if I want to say jaded. Like, I mean, there are like all kinds of people out there, right? And we are like, oh no, not again, right? So going on the other side, it's probably better, right? But this is also kind of like telling you, put it in perspective. Maybe somebody is looking too good to be true, and that's because he or she is too good to be true. So keep that in mind, because that person might be kind of like a little bit different from what they see. This is like entire year. They are not going to be able to put up the game for a year, especially if you see them on a regular basis. So I am really not worried about that. Also, another thing, if this is referring to business, then it's going to be danger of underhanded dealings, and even those who you consider friends might actually turn on you, and you might not count on them. So again, put that in account when you are making decisions that are including that other people. Now, what I would say with this particular rune, as it kind of like relates for the year number 3, that I would say make sure that at least you give yourself 3 days for kind of like really coming up with an answer. Sort of like, you know, not really mulling it over in these 3 days what to do. Sort of like when you have to reach a decision, put it on a back burner, 3 days on a back burner. When you come back in 3 days, then start deliberating what you want to do. So it's still very good, and this is that protection. Like P is for Vunya. I have my own names. P to me is for protection, and specifically when it comes here, because look, it's kind of like pointing backwards, right? So again, over idolizing means, hey, you know, I have all these friends, you know. I mean, I felt that way when I was moving, and then when the time came, like, I mean, everybody promised, and then one phone call after another, oh, I have a flu, I have this. So basically you see really who your real friends are. And this is exactly what it's saying. That date could be a surprise. So kind of like keep that in perspective. Already. So let's see what else we have. Let me just first get all the cards out. Oops, and you already have it. We have fighting. Oh, why do we have fighting thing? So let's, one on the floor. Wow, this is a lovely one. It's called Forgiveness. I love this one. And let's grab this one here. this is just a general energy. As I said, something in, ooh, this is really lovely. You know, I'm so excited about this year. Let me zoom this in for you so you can actually have a better view of these guys, and I can kind of like give you a little bit more information. So fighting is probably a good kind of like omen, right? Fighting is like that proverbial knight of swords, which always kind of like can tend to be a little bit edgy, because look, he's like kind of like riveted himself in kind of like some kind of concoction that maybe he cannot even get out. So it almost like appears to me that somebody is like, I mean, so full of steam, the steam is coming out, it's even forming, as you can see here, some kind of like thing here on the side, right? So it is kind of like very important over here. What I really see here is like some kind of like edginess over here. What I really see here, and me being an air sign, I can really tell you how this works. Air sign can be the most easy breezy sign, but it can be tornado, it can be a hurricane, right? So what kind of like chance do you really want to take on this, right? So it is really, really important when you're dealing with air to kind of like understand that everything here depends on logic. Air is going to say, yeah, I love you, honey, but you are not showing up on time, you are not doing this, you're not doing this, and hence I am leaving you, right? Air is absolutely able to make that kind of stuff. So fire probably would kind of say, okay, well, let's see, let's come up with an action plan how to do that, right? Where, you know, Pentacles would go, okay, so what can you do for me? Like, let's make it more transactional kind of a thing, right? And kind of like water would go, okay, like, I mean, I really, really feel for you. I'm still going to kind of go and continue with this, right? So it is kind of like talking about an explosive temper and maybe even smoldering rage. And to me, whenever I see people like that, I always know there is pain. And these are strong people. And if you're listening to this, like when you see people who are maybe exploding, you want to do something and you find this like immovable, insurmountable obstacle, these people are conveying some kind of like pain. So when are people getting angry? When their needs are not met. When are people in pain? When their needs are not met. But it's actually even worse when they really feel they will never be met. With anger, like, at least, actually, believe it or not, it's better, because people feel, well, you know, if I do this, like, things are going to be met. So I know it's really hard when you have like something really harsh and edgy coming at you, but maybe you're going to remember my words. The person that you see in front of you raging and having those white knuckles and having all huffing and puffing and maybe being threatening, actually is just like the pussycat in the corner who wants to scratch everything because they're really, really hurting. So this is why they are showing this kind of like armor over here, because they're covering their wounds with armor. And actually, even though this is preventing, helping them not to get more wounds, it's also preventing them of being healed. So, you know, these people who lash at others, they just like simply prevent themselves of getting love and nourishment they need. If this is like us and getting that kind of stuff, we actually need to realize when we get angry, well, wait a minute, what is it that I have to kind of like let this like steam out? Because hey, love is like out there. Love is like literally something we need to kind of open our arms and get it. And if this is like you, that you find yourself in the situation, just kind of like give yourself a big hug. Ask your friends to give you a hug. It has a very, very healing thing. Also, another thing that I really tried and it really works, and I tell to my clients, take ballroom dance classes, take salsa lessons, because holding another human and in something that is enjoyable is going to transfer so much good energy. So I really think, given that this is coming for the ambience and environment we are going to find ourselves in it, that this is really, really talking about that this year is going to be one of the struggle. It's going to be where ambitions will be pushed forward. Many people, especially after year number 11, which is 2, where it's very spiritual, where it's like, really, do I really want to be that kind of person? And here is like, I'm moving forward. So up to this point was like all kind of like those strategizing, but here it is kind of moving forward. So when people move forward, some people try to negotiate and find a deal with others. These are people who are more people oriented. other people try to steamroll through whole thing and kind of like get what they want, right? So you need to understand yourself. So because this is kind of like the general overview, you have to figure out if you really want to be part of something like that. Do you really want something at any cost, or you simply don't want something at every cost, right? Because look what you have over here. You have forgiveness from this other deck, and like, to me, this is like one of those, the loveliest cards. This is the card that, you know, if you can see, we have like these different chakras over here. So we are already here in this high purple chakra. So your number 11 was all the way here. So we are getting more grounded. So this is again about judging and forgiveness. So even though it could be them being mad, being rude, being crude, I can see cussing and swearing and telling people off and a finger. I can see here a whole bunch of things. How you react to it, it's what your challenge is going to be. Are you going to just like simply engage in their pain and kind of like react back with anger? Or are you going to kind of like neglect yourself and just going to help themselves? You see how many challenges you will actually have there. But look, solution is being offered over here. Forgiveness. It's, you know, it's not really about forgiving others in this situation. What I really think that forgiveness has to apply to is that we need to forgive ourselves for having judged others. Because judging others always generates kind of like bad brownie points. There's like somebody here maybe who, you know, these people, they're angry with entire world, and my dad is just like it. I get this very, very much. Like whenever everything is perfect, they are still going to find something. We all have those kind of like negative, you know, Sandy, kind of like negative Nancy, kind of like a people around us. So, and of course, maybe sometimes we just like treat these people with a label on it, right? They say if you really want to kind of go higher, not only spiritually, but in your life, you shouldn't kind of like have things with labels. So cat shouldn't have C-A-T kind of like spelled on it. It's a being that kind of is engaging. You see the difference. It's like reading the energy versus reading the label. So here is like basically simply calling, look, you know, understand what is below and behind that armor, that this person is probably, you know, resenting things. And here, like, I mean, we need to kind of like focus on basically intention. What do they really want? And this kind of, imagine if you manage to kind of develop such thick skin that these things are not coming to you, how wonderful would that be? That's why I see this card, but we still didn't get there, right? This also tells me that it may be a time of family healing. I feel that anybody who have hurt you, who have done something, and you know, families have their own histories, especially if there is money involved, or you know, each family has quote unquote their own way. You know, if you watch Game of Thrones, Lancaster always pays his debts, kind of a thing. Story that we see is kind of like over present, but sometimes this is also very limiting, just like this armor. So this also can actually be part of those dynamics. Now, why am I going in such a long intro to tell you this? This is because you guys are on a trajectory of that year number 3, of wishes being fulfilled, of holding on to past dreams. Over the last 2 years, you have been meticulously changing. You have been setting a new path. You have been setting a new direction. You have been also doing lots of bad things, but now you need to forgive yourself. Look, there is like this hypo, and there is like this kind of like baby over here, right? And the story behind here goes, right, that you know, there was like this Rhonda, I think, Rhino, and kind of like she kind of like has a mother. Her mother has like a drinking problem, but she kind of like really wants to become a family pet. And so one day, kind of like she hears, I think, gunfire or something like that, and all the rhinos scatter, and all of a sudden there is like the small human child that is kind of like caught up in the chaos, right? So Rhonda says, come here, come here. She picks him up and runs to safety. So humans now discover this kind of like pair curled up asleep under a tree, and then what they do, they shoot Rhonda with a sleeping dart. So when she awakens, she is in a garden with a little boy and his family. So this is now becoming Rhonda's new family. So as you can see how things can really change. From some aggression and some kind of like struggle and white knuckles, things can actually work out quite well. And then we are getting this Temperance card. Well, Temperance in the other decks is really shown as an angel who is able to mix this bad and good, because it almost looks like two opposite sides of the equation, right? This is like all the way in the negative, this is all the way in the positive. This is like pretty much what we go to church for, what we pray for, what we hope for. This is like when we are at our best. So I'm not really surprised that actually we got this, like in saying, okay, so there is like this kind of like measurement that needs to happen, and there is like a mix. No, I'm not saying to be in the middle. I'm just like saying that you need to kind of like take every single bolt down from every single thing that you feel guarded, for every single thing that you feel you have made your decision, you have made your verdict over something, because this is also a card of reflection. So if you're going up, and I see many people are going in different direction, because this is a year of advancement. This is a year where we're actually putting things in practice. So if in 2018 you were planning to renovate the house, maybe you're collecting kind of like the ideas, maybe you were kind of getting your estimates. In 2019 you're going to put it in place. If in 2019, you were trying to, let's say, get married and find a proper partner, and maybe you were running in a whole bunch of people and feeling maybe even a little bit disillusioned and now getting more guarded. No, it's actually not the time to get more guarded and put more bolts in it. It's like saying, look, I'm still learning what works and what doesn't work. So that's why this reflection is very important. You're looking back and saying, okay, this did come back to me and I did like it. This came back to me and I didn't like it. So you kind of like figure out, this I don't want to have anymore, and this, I do want to have way more to have of this. But also you're saying, I can tolerate this and I cannot tolerate that. So you're kind of like creating that proverbial line in sand, which is like a little bit different. So this kind of like boundaries are set up different. Only thing, because we are having here like this naked woman instead of the angel and the water. Like the nakedness is always talking about being authentic and being true to yourself. And like the truth, some people say, oh, just say it the way it is. I like to be honest, but I cannot say, well, he's going to dump you, for example, right? The truth also always, and that's where the difference in between good human and bad human kind of comes to play, is like how you render it. Because here it's talking about the truth mixed with kindness is basically something that kind of like dissolves everything negative coming your way, right? So just like think about Vunya reversed, as I told you, 3 days. So when somebody comes at us, we react back. There is like this bad blood, right? And we say things that maybe we didn't want to say. 3 days delay, the steam is out, right? You wake up in a new garden and you realize, oh wow, this person actually really wants this. So how do I meet his or her needs without sacrificing mine? Because at this stage the rational mind kicks in, and remember, this is all about logic. So if you can find a way to present that in a logical way, most likely you're going to be successful. Okay guys, so let me tell you a little bit about this year number 3, because that's also very important. So year number 3, we were technically in the year number 2, but for some of us was year number 11. So what's the difference? 1 and 1 is 2. And so why it was for somebody 11 and for some other 2. Not everybody can all the time be at the highest spiritual level. So we just like resort down to what we can do. So number 2 is about harmonizing. Number 2 is like, how can we actually improve and get along better and work better, right? But number 11 is like taking that to the much higher level, sort of like thinking about mankind. And funny enough, even though it is about good, when is good needed? Good is needed to erase the bad. So lots of bad things happen in year number 11. Lots of things that maybe we need to kind of really work for. So after a year in which other people's needs kind of eclipsed our own needs, now it is our turn. The 3-year is like really simple and more casual, this like 12-month cycle. And what is really, really important, and advise making this big sign and put it on your fridge, what do I want? Right? You're going to see that all the things that maybe you didn't consciously plan, but they're kind of coming up, are actually really kind of like coming back. So your own long-term happiness and fulfillment are really the central issues here. And the 3-year cycle gives you that opportunity to discover and then create what you believe will actually make you happy. Remember, Rune. So what you want is actually attainable, regardless what appears to be standing in your way. Are challenges going to happen? Do you have a clear road? Nope. No, you don't. But as I told you, like, spend a few days to kind of think through it. Make sure that you have a backup plan, because people will surprise you with how unreliable they are. So direction of your happiness will be uncovered, and you will first have to detect and, as I said, heal the sources of your unhappiness, which you will find have as much to do with what is taking place in the world, as I told you, is general, as it does also with your own personal situation, because they're like these two puzzles that have to fit together. So it's going to be about direction we take with personal situations, relationships, and also memories. You will really have to feel what you're feeling, and you will need to express those emotions in a way that is really natural for you. We all have different expressions. Yes, some signs are more aloof, some are like just like too kind of like, opening their kind of like water taps too much and cry easily. But this is not to measure that just because you cry over something that you feel deeper or more. Sometimes people cannot cry because they would just like lose it. Just keep in mind, when you see this person like huffing and puffing, angry, that person is like the one who just cannot allow themselves to do that, because they will fall apart. This is how fragile they really, really are. Remember, happiness is a feeling, it's an emotion, and that only comes from inside. And there will be at least one opportunity this year to feel joy as you have never felt it before. Remember, joy. Remember, what do I want? What kind of joy do I want? So as this 3-year kind of progresses, you are going to find yourself, and this is good, in some kind of spotlight. And you will certainly need to express your alternating fears of failure and success. Yes. If you feel, oh my gosh, I'm not going to succeed, that means you're hesitating. Like for the last 2 years, you have been going through that, thinking through it. So why don't you make these first steps? It's going to be some kind of like release. It's going to be making you feel more comfortable, or who you are, what you are, and where are you now. It's going to be that realistic perspective. Remember the woman under this waterfall. It's kind of like that cleanse. I see myself now. I see myself clearly, right? So this completely a new spectrum of options will open up for you. So it's going to be really important that you're going to see now that you're creating something because you have already created in the past. It was in the back of your head. It was something you noticed, and now the puzzles are coming together, and you're becoming that creative springboard from which you build your future. And you might need to take a few courageous leaps in the dark, as I said. So if you're hesitating to make a first step, and if you're thinking, no, I don't ever succeed, I don't do that, well, no, this time you need to take the step forward, because that is going to completely open this new door. Because fear is really there to teach us. That's what needs to be healed, right? So that's kind of like what is guiding us on that path to develop courage and to know that you are far more capable than you ever allowed yourself to believe. And this is that level of self-acceptance. I am this way. I'm just this way. I'm not trying to be Cindy Crawford. I'm not trying to be Brad Pitt. I'm this way, but guess what? I'm really unique. My kindness, my approach with other people, whatever kind of like works for you, is like something very unique, very authentic for you. So that's going to be part of that self-acceptance. And all of a sudden your leaves will turn to bounds. And this year could turn out to be your most fulfilling year ever. So just remember, that courage is not the absence of fear. Just because you're courageous doesn't mean you clear all that fear. So if you're not afraid also, then courage has nothing to do with that. So what courage really is the acceptance of fear and saying, I'm going to deal with this. I'm going to get through it, whatever is causing it. So it could also be like, some kind of like financial state that you have to go through it. You're wondering how can you put things together. So it's kind of like moving it forward. That's kind of like really, really going to help. So this is kind of like that part telling you that nothing is going to be really rosy. But this year, among many, many years, is one of the best years. So in addition to courage that is going to be kind of like exercised, it's also going to be a year full of lightness and happiness and innocence and peace and truth and friendship, creativity, communication, dealing with younger people or feeling youthful ourselves. We are going to be more beautiful, and of course that's going to start kind of like shifting our personality into something that is lighter and more optimistic, more loving, and it's going to be way more laughter than we had in a while. Of course, keep in mind, in order to get there, that sometimes the kind of like the opposite can come through it. So also, on the outside, we might see people who will try to put us in depression and sorrow and guilt, gossip, lies, enemies, ugliness. Am I talking about politicians? I guess I must be. As you can see, the reason why year number 3 is giving us all this happiness and lightness, it's simply to be the antidote to all of these kind of like other things. So if you experience this kind of like pessimistic or, rejection or coldness, then these kind of like things have their purpose. Those adverse elements often enter our lives in the year number 3 to show us that we maybe equate happiness with really superficial and shallow things. And this year, because the number 3 is represented in tarot with Empress, and it's very female, it's very feminine energy. It is kind of like being quiet strength, being that light and light beam to the others. So just think about the perfect woman. So of course she's going to be challenged with those rude males or rude partners or partners who just like really want to conquer her. So yeah, she can engage back and just become just like one of them, or she can just like have this like kindness and lightness about her and just say, nope, I'm going to be courageous enough to say no to you. Maybe you're not my only choice, and if you are, I don't want you, kind of a thing. So year number 3 is very, very important as far as relationship. It's not asking you just to go and hook up with somebody. Nope, it's not going to work that way at all. So it actually is going to ask and demand independence. You will want to be independent. It's kind of contradiction. You're going to be actually more successful in a relationship by being independent than actually just trying to find somebody just because it's easier in the two. This is going to be a really, really good fit because it's going to be an opportunity to love deeply without constantly worrying about what others think. And the more you have the higher self-esteem, the more you approve of yourself and do what you want to do, the more others will accept you as you are, because they'll be witnessing that transformation, and this like pure beauty is going to come through no matter how you look, because you're going to have that authentic confidence. So when this inner beauty is expressed outwardly, it's really, really hard to resist. And we all know people like that who might not even be beautiful on the surface, but their charisma is like so strong. They just like kind of have to put this kind of like smile on their face and they become irresistible. And usually we see that through smile quite a bit of the times. So anybody who will try to kind of like keep up appearances or having any kind of like displays of false confidence or being bullied, that's not going to work. If you want to pretend that you're happy or fearless, that's not going to work. remember, it's going back to what do I want, and it's going to make you push you through. You need to get there by getting along with the other people, by being kind, by being nice. And that of course means kind of like wiggling through many different people who might still not get this memo. So friends will also play an important role in this year, so make sure that you actually give yourself more time for social interaction, and that's where the independence with relationship is going to kind of come to play, because you will kind of like try to please other people, but you also have to realize that you are important, right? So you shouldn't kind of like spread yourself too thin if you're neglecting yourself. You kind of have to put yourself first, and then kind of like give time to everybody, because if you don't pay attention to your friends, then you're going to lose them, because this year is going to be year of abundance. Just like think about it, it's going to be Christmas all year long. This is how it's going to feel. So how would you feel that very, very good friends slight you on Christmas? So keep in mind that you're really thinking about everybody, because it's going to be very, very important for kind of like what kind of brownie points you do that in the future. Because courageous is not only being when there is a fear, there is a struggle, but what when you really can do it, when there is easy to do it, and then you don't do it out of laziness, or you just become arrogant because you feel like you're better than anybody else. Keep that in mind, keep that in perspective, because also individuality is going to be very important. You'll be kind of like creating some kind of like new format of who you are. You can kind of like remove these like bad parts or smoothen them, and kind of like understand that the happiness, this new happiness that you're generating, is also partially because you are actually creating this new optimism. And anybody who is going to have a blatant self-interest is just simply going to be kind of like pushed on the sidelines, and they'll be probably waiting on the next cycle, which is going to come in 9 years, to try it again, right? So also, this is a very creative year. It's a year of communication, expression. So you might want to read, or you might want to write a book, but it's also going to be looking at the images and sound and humor and movies. It's going to be really important. It's almost going to be a big stage, right, this year. So kind of like expression in many, many different elements. Also, as I said, with the rune Vunya reverse, make sure you check the facts for yourself. It's very often in the 3-year that we kind of like really succumb easily to, what do you call it, hearsay, I believe, or somebody who is very loud. Just because you're very loud doesn't mean you're right. So that's why I'm saying give it a delay of 3 days. Somebody says I'm authority, question even that, because the truth is likely to be buried beneath layers of deception or misconception, right? So try to keep an open mind. Also, this year could be a year of appearances. So meaning what appears to be the case must be seen for what it is deep down, not just like what it appears to be, right? Just because you have flowers and something looks really, really nice on the top doesn't mean there's like something really muddy and horrible on the bottom. So just make sure that you correctly understand everything, that you clarify, and that you kind of like are on the same page. And even at that, kind of like still, if you feel that you're betrayed or somebody's like negative, you just like will realize this is just part of the course. Maybe you shouldn't react. Maybe this person is in pain. Maybe this person feels you're going ahead and they are not, and even though it's not your fault, they are being reactive. And take this in account before you actually kind of like deal with other people. Keep in mind that the better person you are, the better everybody around you will become, because it's almost contagious, and this is how good it's going to be. And you're going to really address that feel, as I said. That armor is not going to last, it's going to fall apart. We have to heal all the wounds. We kind of are generating completely this new body. Remember the woman under the waterfall, we are washing it over, we are healing. Just think about for a moment, God is giving you everything new. New health, new body, new possibility, new start. And even though we are going to have share of our problems this year, we are perfectly able to deal with them. The Empress is the perfect woman. She addresses things wisely, and she's kind of like moving it forward with this gentle touch, this loving and kindness and children and pets and creativity and anything that we can give birth to, such as like, I mean, new things, a new personality, new perspective, is going to be really, really important. So the year of optimism, which is very positive, I would just like, I mean, welcome you to enjoy your trip on the tree path, because it's going to be interesting and a creative year to live in. So let's start with the individual signs from this point on. Aries, look who came here to join us. Look. Hi, Shafi. Where, you want to be Aries? She just like likes to watch herself on the video. Isn't that amazing, my little superstar? Just if you wonder, I always read these cards upright. That's why I turn them around. So just, I don't want anybody to kind of like have, oh my gosh, Kat, you did this. This is a general reading. And I am reading cards both up and down, and the reason I'm doing that is when they're kind of like land a certain way, they're giving me idea what's going on. But the truth is that, you know, both circumstances are possible if we are uninterrupted over here. So my dear Aries, from what I'm seeing, this is not necessarily going to be intense here. It's going to be a loving year. Keep in mind that this is a year number 3. So with year number 3, we are kind of like expressing our creativity. And it sounds to me, if your creativity is kind of like going more inward, that maybe you had to catch up with the things up to this point, and then you're finally going, whew, you know, it is time. I can kind of like do stuff. I can kind of like express stuff. So it is kind of like very, very important. Now, seeing these two cards, which is the same card, kind of very, very interesting. Look, 2 different decks, the same card. Why? Now, one was reversed, so as I said, it's going to be kind of like debate between the two ends. We see somebody trapped. Oh my gosh, I cannot get out. But are you going to try? Are you going to do anything about it? How are you really going to go about it? Because this is 8, and this is 8, and this is ultimately 8, because 17, 1 and 7 makes 8, right? So this is really telling me, given that you have the island over here, that maybe in the first quarter, because now I'm watching the quarters, you might sort of like be kind of like almost riddled with a whole bunch of things. Well, should I do this or should I do that? It could be something that is happening in a very unexpected way. It actually, guilt, if you really think about guilt, it is one of the most destructive emotions in which kind of like we get caught, right? It's really, if you think about it logically, yes, I am Aquarius, of course, everything is logical. It's useless, right? And we kind of like feel bad over something, but it is very useful if we know how to turn it into positive. When we feel guilty over something, well, it could be one of the two things. One, we feel that we kind of like fail someone. 2, we have issues and we feel that we have failed someone. So what's the difference? The difference is like sometimes it's real, sometimes it's not real. Sometimes we are programmed that you have to jump higher and do better, and then we keep going higher and higher and better, but we are getting less and less and less results. So it is kind of like that fine line where you need to determine. So that's why you need to kind of come to me and get a reading. So this is really telling me about some possible self-doubt and maybe possible feelings of worthlessness. Come on, guys, I cannot recognize you, right? To the point that we really can't see the beauty that life offers us. Look at this, there's this light, there's like something outside. Even in the prison, you should kind of like be able to look out. Just think about if you're a cat, you're always in, and they don't ever kind of like curl in a corner and say, I'm really unhappy. It's always kind of like that positivity exercise. Look at me, I can do that. I can be more loving, I can be more aware, and I can be more true to myself. This is the lesson to you, no matter where you are, right? You basically shouldn't punish yourself for, your failures by feeling guilty, right? Because you might get locked in this kind of like cycle of despair, right? It is really clearly telling me that yes, you're absolutely okay as you are, and it's kind of like really natural for you to kind of like go astray from time to time, kind of like you need to learn to move on. For some of you, this actually can be issue about the kids, that kids are acting up. Maybe you have teenagers and you feel like you have failed them, but you have to understand that at some point they also have to carve the destiny for themselves. You see, this is highly warning that healing card came through. That's that card of looking up, but it came reversed. So you need to kind of like break these chains. Remember when I was saying there are like two possible traps, right? In one trap is you really feel guilty, but then, what's the point of feeling guilty? Yes, it's good to acknowledge that you did something wrong, but do something about it. In AA, they have the 12-step program. So one of those steps is kind of like contacting people you feel you have wronged. And most likely it's not going to go anywhere, but even saying, I am sorry, it's really important. It's one life to do it. Also, you got crown chakra over here, and it looks like it's a theme. Everybody so far got crown chakra. It is like that very special spiritual thing where that energy is coming from above, and you guys are taking that really seriously. Look at this: solitude, stillness, reflection. Oh my goodness, right? And then you have harmony and master, which are kind of like the opposite kind of like sides of the same coin. So you're literally cleaning some debris, some spiritual debris. I clearly see that. You really need to go, if you want my allegory, toward the light. So when you feel like, you're feeling maybe guilted by someone, maybe somebody really wants to keep you in that situation because it suits them. Maybe you feel you're in a situation that you really don't know how to get through. Then, maybe you need to take basically a lesson from this beautiful card. Look at that. We see this tree on the island surrounded by this beautiful mirror-like glassy sea. And really what is like really striking over here is that we do have clouds. So what did you focus on? What was the first thing you have seen here? The glassy sea, the reflection, or sort of like a stark environment, or this purple tree, unusual purple tree, or this dark murky clouds, or simply this light that is shining through. I really kind of know the card, so I cannot really say anymore what was the first thing, but I really believe this light shining is very striking. It is clearly telling you, look, you have that theme with the clouds over here as well. So above the clouds, they're like flowers. You can smell the flowers, you can smell the roses, and this also to me looks like jasmine. And I don't know if you've ever been around jasmine. It has like such nice flagrant smell that is just immediately putting you in a good mood. So this is kind of like, to me, suggesting, given that we have the ocean breeze over here, right, that you need to kind of like go into cooling off something. And all of these kind of like instances here are asking for you to kind of like process things from the inside, because over here you can focus on the negative. Oh my gosh, I wouldn't live there. What is there? It's all naked, it's all stark. What do I do? But look at this tree. If this tree kind of like felt the same way, the seed would never kind of like go up and survive in spite of all these elements of the open sea. So this is also talking about that silence and that solitude, and spending kind of like this time on your own, and not really spending the time to just go down the memory lane that kind of like causes like guilt trip. I really feel that you kind of like are haunted by the things from the past that somehow are resurfacing. You are kind of going through the emotions, what if, and if I did that, oh my gosh. This is kind of like absorbing all the guilt. This actually almost like is the opposite of narcissism, because with narcissism you're just like, here it is, my guilt goes on to you, right? This actually, believe it or not, shows this true compassion, the true kind of like person who you're saying, maybe at the time you felt you're doing the right thing, but now you know you could have actually done it better. So the meditation is sort of like a good recipe over here, because exploring your emotions and going in the silent place to see, okay, if you're feeling guilty, then you have to kind of like think why. You kind of like really have to go down to that worry, to that fear. So like, because we have both fear and guilt, right, of the same kind of like facets of the same card, and you have to see what is really triggering this, which particular thing that you think of really gets you there, right? You have to figure out what are the barriers, because obviously there are some kind of barriers that are happening over there, right? Keep in mind that this observing your thoughts and emotion is going to neutralize it. You're going to be able to see that as sort of like an observer, right? And instead of like kind of like pulling it in and feeling sorry, and usually guilt leads to, oh, I feel sorry for myself, blah blah, you know, why don't you really think how many kids are in the sick kid hospitals, and with a brave face they're actually waiting for a Christmas, with a brave face they're playing with their toys. You can actually put this brave face. Yes, I know you're Aries, you're like such a strong sign, so when you decide to spend time for yourself, you're going to be able to connect with who you truly are. And I really think this is kind of like a big C for you this particular year. Connecting is going to be very, very important, right? Because what I'm seeing here is like this leads to something spectacular, right? Maybe because it's not once, but second time, but the third time that you have love, love, and love. It almost looks like it's some kind of like internal dry cleaning that you're actually doing over here, and this is kind of like really, really changing. I really like that in this deck they called love, basically lover's card harmony, and this is really talking about how to basically work it. Then we have the share the love, and which is kind of like that vibration of the 3, and here also we have 3 of earth, which is also vibration of 3. So what does that mean? So as I said, general kind of like vibrations are 3 is like the creativity and doing the stuff for you that's going to really manifest in relationships. If you're looking for somebody, spend this first quarter to really heal, to really kind of like cut all these chains of what is basically compressing you, what is basically keeping you somewhere. If somebody rejected you, if you feel rejected, this is there for a reason. Maybe they're rejecting you because of something that you did, and you know, you simply have to release it and let go and really see, you know, that the universe kind of like brings to you what you really need. You know, we all are really kind of like selfish beings, of course. I want what I want, I want what I want, right? But you have to kind of like put things in perspective. You know, maybe let's say you want to take a dog on and get some pretty nice puppy being deserted elsewhere, but you know, maybe you have children at home that have allergies or cats and they're not going to take it. So you need to kind of like take this like bigger picture and see how that really fits there, because if you learn from the situation, you actually accomplish what you needed to accomplish. The whole idea here is to get out of this fear, and it's giving you a clear recipe how to go about it. Meditation, being out in the nature, connecting. It almost like sounds to me that you have been busy bee in the year number 11, which kind of like was dedicating, most of us dedicated to kind of growth. And when the growth basically happens, mostly spiritual growth in years 2 and 11, it is about cooperation with others. So you being the first sign, you don't tend to cooperate because you're such a strong leader. You kind of like just like tend to just go through the door and tear it down, right? But it kind of like came at a price. It came at a price of other people observing this and taking a note. And even though maybe they didn't and couldn't, shouldn't, were afraid to kind of like react, the consequences were there, and you have seen them. Or maybe you heard them from those of you who have really strong partners. Some of you maybe have lost a partner and right now are really thinking through how to kind of go about that. And there's like something that going through this process of self-discovery, crown chakra is like something that comes really through the top of your head. It's so-called God's energy. It is the energy that really comes through as a very important kind of like part. Because in the second quarter, and this we are talking just when we enter your birthday, all of a sudden the doors will open, and they will really open wide. Look at this. And I also have to tell you that there will be particular colors that will be very beneficial for you. It's going to be just like these two that you see it, but it's going to be one more, and I don't know, it's very similar to this one, sort of like the brick one, and I think it's also called color of the year. It's not necessarily the prettiest color, but those colors are really going to kind of like push you into this nice, gentle, compassionate Aries, right? So check this out. Isn't this such a beautiful card? We see these two hands, maybe that have been separated, kind of like reaching toward each other. Like it is like when we feel that love in our heart center. So if you feel guilt, you cannot feel love, right? So do you want a cup full of guilt, or you want a cup full of love? And you can love somebody even if they don't love you back. This is conscious decision. That's what you're doing. This is really talking about heart chakra, right? That we kind of clearing that guilt, we all of a sudden will be able to emit that healing energy, that heart energy. And this also tells me that maybe you kind of like have to be repaired to the point of you being able to move on. So it can be seen in two ways. If you already have a partner, that partnership is going to be made very strong and very loving. You are almost like going to the next level, right? There are going to be still certain things that you cannot reach, but if you kind of like feel that you let somebody down and maybe that person is not opening the doors back to you, right? And that's why you're feeling stuck on this point. I think what's going to happen, you're going to kind of like repair your shield, and you'll be able to actually move forward. And not only will you be able to move forward, but people will actually appear in your life who will be the right, basically, people. So this is like, from what I see, the route to healing. And here is like something that started, and here is like continuing. So just remember, being compassionate to the others is actually healing you. How is that for a win-win scenario, right? So also, given that we have heart, and this is heart, and this is heart, so like, I mean, in this entire 5 decks we have heart, like, I mean, heart, right? Only mentioned, like, I mean, 4 times, and you have them all 4. What are the chances, right? So as you can see, that's the theme. And I mean, it's really good to be you this year. But you also need to remember, as far as heart goes, that your heart is a giver. So meaning like putting off electrical energy, and the receiver is kind of like drawing in magnetic energy, right? So these energies, like, I mean, are best sensed when kind of like listening to your breathing, and then you can actually really see how this goes. And that's why they're trying to put that electrical energy and resuscitate us if we die, or if it kind of like skips. This is really talking also about forgiveness. And you don't have to forget if somebody wronged you, but forgive. But I also think that forgiveness is really kind of like telling me that you need to forgive yourself over certain things that you have done. I also think this year is going to be really about you reaching a new level of awareness. You're reaching a new level of who you are, who you want to be. I have a feeling that it was a while, and it could be a process that was happening for you, maybe process something between 3 and 8 years, that something new was brewing. Because for you, the shift will happen this year. In fact, the big shift is going to happen in your third quarter. So you're going to really start your birthday with a big bang. It's going to be somebody in your life, or you'll be flirting effectively, you'll be very attractive to people, and everybody really want to have a piece of you, right? But you still need to kind of like shed this, right? Look at this, the outsider. So we are seeing like the scene, and most of us can understand it. Most of us think, oh boy, you know, I have been there when I feel, you know, I have been isolated and I have been kind of like pushed away from the others. But look what we see over there up front. We see this like almost like a bubble gum. We see that rainbow colors in that wall. But I don't know if you noticed something else. Check out this lock. Lock is unlocked. So there is like nothing that is preventing us. Look, you also have chains twice. You need to cut the cords. You need to cut these chains. The Tree of Earth is also talking about your contribution. So it looks like in a relationship, you're going to carry more weight. In a relationship, you're going to try to be a pillar, and it's going to be that protectiveness that you will have of the other people that is going to be highly recognized, and that balance is kind of like coming back, that compassion, kind of like giving hand, but also allowing yourself to receive it, right? Because you tend to be very proud sign, and you tend to be, you know, I just like really want to be here for my loved ones, for the others, and in the process, you guys neglect yourself. Right? So there is like really time to kind of look at it, because this year you're really going to kind of go in a very strategic way. Remember, we had Vunyo reversed. Vunyo, and it's kind of like reflecting in your threes, especially when it comes to the decisions of love. Do not make rash decisions, because this is about the commitment or lack of thereof. Maybe you don't want to commit, maybe somebody else doesn't want to commit. It can be a tricky energy, and this energy is really about channeling out what needs to be done. There is like this birth of this light that we also see in those two, and kind of like smelling the roses. So being surrounded with flowers, and please don't buy cut flowers. This is basically killing a living being, right? Just buy the pot and put it like somewhere and give them this beautiful life they can actually deserve by feeding them with water every day. So they need their stuff. And I believe it's or not, Savvy has actually one flower that she really likes, and she sits next to this flower, and I didn't really pay attention until recently when I started to see that this flower, I think it's one of those red with this like yellow stuff sticking through it. Like, it's not calla lily, it's like a calla lily, but it's red, right? So all of a sudden that flower started to like, do so well and bloom. So I'm thinking this is connecting, that's feeling that warmth, and so, oh my gosh, I'm just keeping these flowers like that, and it's kind of like really amazing. Anyway, I'm off my tangent, like I'm off my soapbox too. So it is really important to understand that you actually don't have anything stopping you, but you're going to do things in a more gentle, in a more constructive, in a more like, hey, you know, what do you want me to do way. And it's not going to be sort of like being that leader. You will actually want somebody to be there with you. And that shift is going to change so much, this openness and giving. And I don't know if you can see it here in the picture. Look at this picture surrounding here with couples looking at each other almost like as if in this particular thing. So you need to be able to express love. So this is a tricky part. You know, there is this book, I think 5 Love Languages. I think book conceptual is good, but who is to say that you don't have a combination and just like peg people into something? It's never good. That's always, I say, kind of like check different kind of like planets that are also dominating your chart, because they will also affect you. So this year, I guess you're going to kind of like clean the slate. You're going to kind of like figure probably the things that didn't work. And in order to figure this one out, this is like something to move forward. Okay, this doesn't work, I cannot do this anymore. And then puff, all of a sudden this big heart is coming through, coming forward. And then again, you're not going to rush into, okay, let's seal the deal, let's put like the ring on it, that kind of stuff. You're actually this time ensuring that things really don't happen. Interestingly enough, that we have winter solstice, but that will be your third quarter. So this will really talk about I guess late fall, sorry, late summer, early fall kind of a thing, because in the northern hemisphere we actually start the year with the winter and we finish the year with the winter, and that's a food for thought, right? So also, you know, if you really think about winter, this is like where we have the shortest day of the year, but also the longest night. And what is really important about that, and again, I really think this is talking, we see the reflection here and the reflection here, but it's also talking about light. When we have such a long nights, and I don't know where you're located, my dad is at Niagara Falls, so we go there and they have these festivals of lights. So those frozen falls, this enormous body of water freezes and they have these lights over there, and it's kind of like also celebration. Hey, you know what, at this stage the light is going to return, right? And kind of like it's being born again. So this is about review again, so you will be taking one step or maybe two or maybe three steps forward, because this is going to be awesome. You guys, your summer, you know, I'm putting it in my calendar. Find Aries, because you will be just bliss to be around. My brother is Aries, so I'll be kind of like rubbing shoulders to kind of like get some of that themselves. But this is again saying you actually will now, all of a sudden, imagine, you'll realize that you have been going part of the year through all this kind of like nightmares and what have I done and what should I do, and all of a sudden you're coming into this harmony and balance and love and a bliss and sharing. So very kind of like different kind of corners, and you will realize how quickly things can turn around. And what was the only thing that kind of like linked them together? Yes, it was you. So it's going to be kind of like a review of, hey, you know, this worked, truly worked. Maybe here you're trying still kind of where to go or not to go. You need to open certain gates maybe that you'll feel iffy about, right? But once when you kind of like feel here that you really want to stop and just kind of like review everything that happened so far, right? It's kind of like looking into everything, not only just let's go into this blissful moments, but also the fear and the joy and happiness and love and expression. And this is kind of like, again, you guys are going to go so spiritual. I think that some of you might even become gurus, right, in kind of the stuff, because look, you're getting this card here that is talking about prosperity begins. So there it is. So you are going through all these seeds. So when I was younger, and I don't know if you guys had it here in North America, my mom would buy this rice in bulk, and you actually had to clean the rice. You would actually have to take out some black rice, which today we pay lots of money to actually have it, but kind of like she wanted me to remove it, right? So finally you found this one that is actually going to be that beautiful seed, and look at it. I see that feeling of comfort. So this is again, guys, you and you and you. So this is like number one that I always connect with you, and look at the growth. And oh, manifestation, we have a thread. So you know that I always look at the things that actually also happening around. So there is like that thread, and I think the thread is like connecting with chains, and I really think you have cut the chain over here, and that's what you need to do in order to manifest something properly, because this is financial manifestation, this is kind of like spiritual manifestation, keep in mind it was reversed, and this is emotional manifestation. So talking about prosperity begins, it is kind of like determination about this completely new direction. So this was more or less just like going through the motions, but still kind of like having that time dedicated to doing things one way or the other. And all of a sudden you're actually realizing the huge value of cooperation. Check this out, 6 of Earth and 6 of Earth. It's, I guess, doubling up, just like what we had of here. And this is about balance. So remember how I said here, it could be a good or bad thing that, you feel guilty. But this is telling me that you're realizing completely that you have to figure out both sides of that equation. Over here, we see these two, I think they're petty criminals in Japanese court, as this explanation goes. So they were back then when there was no schooling, but because they were trapped so many times, they understand how the process works, like what it works when you come before the judge, what you have to say. So in a sense, they got schooled. So they actually, upon release, they had an opportunity to work in the court system because, right, they were able to kind of figure out what they need. So both of them have the swords, as you can see. But here, look at this. There is like this pinky promise, pinky finger, pinky compromise. Everybody is giving something. So they are realizing that you need to kind of like reach out, that you need to kind of like build it. This is also about balance. How much are you giving out and how much are you getting? The flow is that matters. Not just like I have to now make up for everything that I didn't get. It's not how it works. Yes, I know people say pendulum swings the other way, but just like think about if you felt that somebody wronged you, would you want them to feel wronged now from going forward, or would you want that relationship to function normally? So that's what I am really really talking about. Because I really think that you're concerned about some relationship. You might even be concerned about you, because you are again getting this stillness. It's going to be lots of internal processes. It's almost like that I feel you'll be analyzing lots of things this year, in which direction to go, how to go about things, why to go about things. Yes, Matrix. But this card showed up, and there's like heart trapped. Right? Because this really tells me it kind of like maybe is pushing you. What's up, baby? What? He's starting to talk. Isn't this amazing? Master is really talking about somebody regulating us. Maybe you have some really bad habits. Maybe it was drinking, it was kind of like drugs, it was like working too much, it was like neglecting family, spending too much on a computer instead of your kids at home. Kind of like feeling that you didn't give as much as you could. And this is not about money, it's about time, it's about energy, it's about emotions. You know, what would happen if all the people you cherish and love died tomorrow? Would you feel that you told them enough, that you love them, that you care for them? Well, this is kind of like thought process that you're going to have this year. You're going to say, no, you know, I have to make sure that each time effectively I'm telling you I love you, I kind of like care for you. And this also could be that maybe somebody's going to try to manipulate, or that you're going to kind of like go a little bit back in your old ways. But this time you actually do have tools, what you have been going through. As I said, it's going to be lots of thinking this year, and Page of Air also talks about thinking, but then it's going to be go with the flow. You are going to get a completely different new dimension. This new dimension is going to be, look, I cannot win all the time. Surely I know where I'm going, but other people really need to be taken account in a much greater measure than I did so far. Or vice versa. You can be demanding that people take you in account way more than basically what's happening up to that point. These two cards kind of worry me a little bit, because the Master is the opposite of this harmony, right? Master in this particular, even though sounds good, it's kind of like you are not the master of your own domain. Somebody is kind of like pushing you in a situation, and that could be of a material nature, because we see here two cards. What's up, baby boy? What's up, baby boy? I love you. Look at that. You have the visit from my black kitty. You know, this is really talking about the wisdom, and we are going right back. If you know, sometimes we change, and other people around us, they will not acknowledge that we changed, that we really worked on it. They will still kind of like label us with the same things. So it's really easy to kind of like go back in the traps that we kind of like had, because we have these bars here and we have these bars there, and this ho ho ho, I guess you're hearing who is giving you this spectacular New Year wishes. Is that what you're doing, Matrix? Solitude is this time becoming really productive. This is again going back to, hey, you know what? We have been there. Let's not go there anymore. because it might be, again, there was like kind of slipping in the old bad habits, and this is usually happens when we lull ourselves into kind of something good happening. And so, for example, let's say you're sick and you are taking meds, and then 3 days down the road you're good. I don't need to take meds, and you just stop it. So all of a sudden what happens, the body kind of revolts. It kind of like did function, it did get to the point of functioning, but it didn't create completely new system that is firm, and hence kind of like this entire kind of dosage is needed for this whole entire process to finish. I really like the fact that there is like the solitude, because it's coming out of these 8s, right? And it's coming into 9. So you're literally kind of like figuring out this new concept. You're figuring out this entire process. Usually they say the 9s means that you reap what you sow, right? So it is clearly telling you just this year, it's allowing you to kind of go into completely new space. You are given such a beautiful gift. You're given gift of love and compassion. So do not allow yourself to be used, right? Because again, like, look, you have a 6 and 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 you have love. I mean, come on. The 6s are loving cards. And now, in 666 is not the devil sign. Yes, I know this card is called the devil in the other decks, but 6666 and 666 is about karmic connection. So you are obviously dealing with somebody here with whom you have something unresolved. It could be unresolved from this life or from the past lives or from both. And you're seeing kind of like your side of that pancake, but you're also seeing theirs. And usually people tend to kind of like keep status quo and keep that territory in the middle. So the moment when you start changing, because you will be maybe approaching somebody and saying, hey, I'm sorry, kind of like, how do I make up to you? And the territory is changing, and all of a sudden this new negotiation happens. So it's kind of like going back and forth, reaching out and making sure that, you see, that's why I believe this one was reversed, telling you don't go back into, I'll make decisions for you, I will mansplain you, I will, trust me, it's going to be worked this way. It's going to be more cooperative spirit. And I really think that's going to be really the name of the game, because you're given a relationship that actually is really, really good. So you really want to keep it. And keeping relationship, the only way to do it is kind of go 2 ways. And this goes the other way. If you meet somebody who is domineering, who kind of like doesn't kind of like see what you see, doesn't take your wills and your wishes in account, then this is like really something to really acknowledge, talk about it, and not allow. Because this is really saying, look, I really like you. I really think what you are doing is to protect me. I really think, I'm feeling so much for you. There is like something here. But, let's do that as a team. Let's do that with this like dose of harmony and compassion. Remember how well everything was like gliding, right, when we were in that zone. And I really think maybe you're going to spend time to figure out what kind of like words to choose and how to express it. But this year is going to clean a whole bunch of stuff that maybe existed there over the last 8 years. Maybe you generated some really, really bad habits, and these bad habits were maybe affecting your life, your relationship, and it's going to change big times. You guys did something really, really good. You guys really, even though maybe you felt that for a while you didn't have a good one, that things could be better, that things could be improved, karma is saying you actually you were on the right path, you were doing the right thing, and it is all kind of like continuing the way it should continue. So do not fret. So the second part, what I'm going to do, I'm going to shuffle cards, and we are going to put them in 12 astrological houses. So we're going to see how different segments of your life will be affected. Then the third part is going to be Lenormand, and we're going to put this all in the timelines. So let me start shuffling the second part. Alright, Aries, let's see different segments of basically what's going to be happening over here. Really, I like what I see. I mean, we have another 8, which we kind of had it domineering over there, the part of the reading. You also had all these 1s and new beginnings. So we have a 1, we have a 10, which is the same thing. And remember how you had this like the essence of 9 and kind of like doing the best you can be, and 9 is like sort of like, let me review my life so far kind of a thing. So we kind of like have also 3 cards that kind of can signify 4 cards that can signify that. So it's clearly kind of like positioning better in a different segment, so I can really tell you which one you will have to pay more attention and which one less. So the very first house, so astrology has 12 houses, 12 signs. If you know the time of your birth, the ascendant that is basically being determined at the time is going to be your house number 1, right? And so maybe you can mix that with basically that sign and just like to see, I have a Libra in my house number 1 because that's my ascendant, and mixed with the world, this is going to mean that the justice and essence of that kind of like sort will be really, really important to me, right? But this is like really general for all of you in addition to that. So this is the first card. We have the first card that is like the world, and world upright would be absolutely amazing card. It is really telling me that you might have people around you, either Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, or Aquarius, who are extremely influential in your life, one way or the other. Meaning in a good way or in a bad way. Look, there is like this huge infinity here that is like hidden in this card. We also have this sickle, and remember, like I told you, it's kind of like at a stage of 9 and you are pushing it into a 10, so you're kind of like pushing it in the last quarter in a completely new direction. This is really telling me that there is like something from the past that is kind of like coming back. It's almost like when you need to go back in order to kind of like figure it out. So it's almost like, you know, well, I have been doing well back then, but now I'm not doing well, so let me kind of like backtrack and do this. Sometimes with relationships, we have to take a step back. When we take the step back, you know, the only way we can kind of like see where we are going. So it's kind of like you end up in a dead end with your car driving, instead of going all crazed out the way I do. Of course, with GPS, it's much easier. Like my dad goes, you're never going to learn about the city if you're using your GPS. Okay. But I'm at least getting places instead of being lost, right? So it's kind of like you're going to the last place where you knew that you were kind of like on the right path. So this is the house of ourselves, of awareness of who we are. It could be our appearance and outward personality. Maybe you have been experimenting with your image. Maybe you're not happy with your image, and you actually really, really want to go back to where it really worked properly. So given that you have 4 this like signs, it's going to be in 4 different levels. So literally you really want to improve yourself, and there's like still something from the past. Remember how we saw that guilt and fear and a whole bunch of stuff. It's going to be something that is going to be really coming in and out this year, because it's going to be relating to the past, and not only the immediate past, something that, as I said, could have been in the previous 8 years, and it could be something that is like really even from the past lives, as I see it over here. So whether it's going to be how financially to progress, whether it's going to be, okay, do I need to take any new classes, right? Aries gives you this energy, openness. Do I need to be more open-minded? Am I too rigid? Scorpio is going to give you like this new understanding of what love is and how to really go down and deep. And Leo is going to show this like beautiful ability to be giver. Remember this card? It's kind of like reaching this out. So you're going to learn on all these 4 ends, and maybe this is why in the quarterly it kept coming back. Solitude, reflection, you need to kind of like spend some time on it, because I think it's going to be 4 main influences that you guys are going to have. So it's repair on all levels. Just think about comparison, metaphor with a house renovation. Let's say the house has the basement, main floor, and the second floor. It's going to be renovation on all levels, including roof, including pipes, including everything. You are literally now determined to improve. And that's actually really, really going to be really, really good. You have here the card of personal resources. And it can also talk about money and possessions and values and skills. you're not necessarily super happy on this level. And this is good when you're not happy, because fret not, it's going to end well. But and I really think that's why you kind of like had this card, Prosperity Begins, right? Because you're kind of trying to figure out a different way of doing things. And I really think this is really addressing finances and work, and how do you handle there, which people are maybe people who you maybe want to avoid or minimize, and maybe somebody was triggering you and you're not going to allow that triggers to happen, and so on and so forth. So this really talks about literally reassessing. It's again that 7. Remember, you had this like crown chakra. It's again kind of like, let's think through it. This is like thinking card, this is thinking card, this is thinking card. How is that for that? So in this particular case, it is what I remember what I told you. It's probably quarter 1 where you actually realize what doesn't work, what you cannot tolerate, what you do not want to tolerate anymore. So it is realization, I'm not going in this direction anymore. That is going to be very, very important. In the house number 3, it is a thinking card. It is like your immediate environment, and it is about mental activity and learning and communication. And again, something from the past is coming to the fore. It's really good when the Judgment shows up upright, which means, hey, now you're clearing your karma. Remember when I told you in a quarterly that I've seen that? So here is the confirmation. We have another karma card here as well. So the Judgment really talks about, okay, so let's put everything on a plate and see what is needed. But look at this. This really talks about family. And I really think that some of you will be really big on family life. Family meaning to me not only the people who share blood with you, but people who are your non-blood family, your friends, the people who are special to you. And that includes your pets. That includes your pet projects and pet interests as well. So Judgment is finally reaching that clarity, reaching this and saying, okay, so this is the way it was, and I understand how I affected you, and what can I do to change this going forward. But remember, it's going to be with lots of love and compassion, but also with balance. Hangman means that you guys will be doing lots of sacrifices this year. This kind of really relates to that year number 3, right? So here is like this vibration of from what is happening from the outside. It's going to be really influencing you. So for you, that actually falls in your nurturing house. House number 4 is about home and parents and roots and inner security. So you're literally going to say, look, this year I'm sacrificing myself for the higher good, whatever this is. This could mean taking new lessons, and hence you know that you will have to be highly programmed in order to meet all these obligations at home, in family visits, walking the dog, kind of a thing. But when you dedicate to do something, you're going to realize that nobody else has to suffer because you're doing that. Because the Hangman always has the element of sacrifice. Because look at him. He doesn't seem to be unhappy in the situation. He has the hands tied. And you see, this is that 4, the control of your basically card, the Emperor. And he is simply kind of like saying, okay, I am allowing the destiny to be in your hands. So the Hangman actually in tarot represents God. And if you really think about it, God is really saying, okay, show me your way. Show me how you're doing. Let me see what you're doing. There is also a story about Norse god Odin, as you probably heard of him from, if anybody's watching Vikings and like Vikings as much as I do. Odin kind of like put himself in this hangman position. So you see all of these religions and mythologies interact. So he saw on the ground etchings. And he was looking and looking and looking, I think, for days. And I think it was 7 days in this position. And I know he cannot be 7 days in this, so it's a myth. But then he was able to read those runes. And the runes basically said, you're free to go. Free to go. You can go. You have learned your lesson. So this is kind of like when we see what other people do and how they go about it, even though that's maybe not the smartest way, the best way to go about it. But this is like their unique way. It's maybe understanding how to approach it and how to actually deal with this. This is going to be really important. Maybe you're having issues dealing with your elderly parents. Maybe you have issues with expectations that are being placed upon you. And maybe you were struggling, well, how you had your way, and it's kind of like very dominant way that Aries is. Now you're kind of like bringing in that gentle kind of note and saying, okay, fine, you know what, let's kind of like do it your way. Let me see what you want. And then you see, that's that compromise. Remember this card, kind of like you're really not saying it's going to be just the way you say it. You're actually saying, okay, let me kind of like try, let me see. You're reaching out, right? You're opening this door. It's not anymore this kind of like barrier in between, and you're kind of like giving that pinky finger out there. So there is like this essence, okay, we can collaborate. Maybe it's opening gates to some relationships that maybe didn't function entirely well and it needed to really be repaired. Then we are going, and this is kind of like really kind of affecting, it will affect your immediate environment, your family, your siblings. It's going to be something that is really going to change. It's also going to be really who you essentially are, with that such a huge loving energy and understanding of basically what love is. And I don't know if you've seen that movie. It's the British movie that I love. It's called Love Actually with Hugh Grant. I highly advise to watch it because it shows that there are different types of love and that all of them actually have that equal role. So for you, because you had so much love showing up in your quarters, this is clearly saying it's not going to be just a partner. It's going to be affecting all corners of your life. Then we have the house number 5, and that's a romance and children and fun and creativity. And the moon here is reversed, which is a good news. When moon is upright, it kind of like talks about uncertainty. It talks about barking at the moon instead of like following this pathway, sort of like dead end streets. But when moon reverses, and I really think for you it is reversing because of all of these work and these steps that you're going to take, there is like finally reaching clarity. You're finally seeing that light. Remember, we had this like theme of light here as well. So moon reversed, it is like dawn is coming. It's going to be a new day. Tomorrow is a new day, Scarlet, sort of a thing. And these two cards are really connecting with that moon energy because she has crescent moon at her feet. So this is here talking about romance. So maybe you had issues with trusting. Maybe others had issues trusting you, because moon upright can talk about jealousy, can talk about unexpected things happening. Maybe it was like a huge amount of unpredictability in your life. Now you're kind of like making your concessions and your life is becoming more predictable. You're finally seeing what you should be doing, right? Like after understanding other people's motives and other people's intentions. In the house number 6, it is like your basically work and health and service, like I serve, sort of like daily life house. And you have the high priestess, and there you go. There is somebody who is observing. You guys are going to spend almost like a scientist this entire year. You're observing how other people behave. You're willing to sacrifice, but not to the point that that is detrimental to you. To a point where, you can learn something from that sacrifice. And then you learn, you move forward, right? Here, she is saying, okay, I have done things, and I have now applied things that I have learned. But are you treating me correctly? Are you treating me the way you should? I think Maya Angelou said, well, listen to what people tell you. Watch what people show you. They will tell you who they are. And that's what she is doing. She is simply watching, right? So you have to be aware that you have watched, and also you will be watching other people, because it's going to be that very kind of like introspective, deep year for you, right? Very, very deep. And it's going to be extremely beneficial. It's going to surprise you, almost like you're going from day to night from what is like your natural tendency, and yet this is going to bring huge results. Not because you're all of a sudden quieter and going deeper. It is because you actually did enormous amount of work all of these years. So it's almost like building this mountain and building this house on the mountain. You had to bring all the bricks and all the way stuff up there, and now you're finally putting the roof. And it's not that very last kind of like brick that you put on. It is that the whole process that is finally kind of like coming to its finish. this is your house of a partner, and there is a partner, there's like somebody strong, and there is exactly partner that you would die for. A loving King of Rods could be another fire sign. Generally they're like talking, this is a Leo, in some other decks is Aries, but in any case this also could be just dating, right? As opposed over here in the house number 10, which is at work, if you're dealing with somebody from work, they might not be as stable as this fellow here. This is one of those people who would make a really, really good fit for you, who probably has a very strong fire in their chart where they're doers and they're shakers. It's never a dull moment with them. Hey, let's do that. Let's kind of like see this play. Let's do this. And even if you're at home, kind of let's watch the movie. Kind of like let's play Monopoly. Kind of a person who is like always on the go. It's also somebody who is really fair. It's also somebody who is like very loving and very kind of like protective. So that's that equality. That's the harmony that I was telling you about. Now they're like two equal partners. You guys are really on a projection of possibly really having that partner to going to say, that's it, I'm staying here, that's my last destination, I don't need to look anymore. I really don't think you'll be making commitments still yet, that I don't see engagement or marriage, but that's still possible for some of you, especially if that was like somebody from the past already kind of like happening over here, because obviously you're taking the steps to understand what they see and how they see. But there's like definitely somebody who is having a huge staying power, and it's very, very important. So it might be somebody, and if you're a guy, it could be a woman that is coming in your life who is a little bit I guess domineering. Maybe you like kind of like softer, kind of like girly girls, and it's going to be completely different, and you are going to love it. So then we're having a house number 8, and generally this is ruled with Scorpio and sex and death and letting go. So you're letting go some concepts. 10 of Cups reversed, it talks about some issues with emotions and not having your needs met. And here we again have this kind of like pressure, and I'm stuck and I don't know how to go from here. But you're letting go of this, so that's a good news. You're letting go of some preconceived notions of how things should look like. It's almost like you come on the new planet and you want things cooked this way, but they don't have a cauliflower. You're very gracious, they don't have broccoli, right? But you kind of like have to figure out how to do things in kind of like within what you have, right? So you cannot make basically, you know, silk curtains out of burlap. So you have to work with this element. So this is kind of like really letting go of something that is unrealistic. Maybe, and I'm going to go into more intimate details, maybe some of you want more sex, and the other person maybe is not having such a hard drive, right, as you do. So this is this understanding, like, wait a minute, like, why I'm so focused on this when there are so many other things, but kind of like, where do we meet in the middle, kind of a thing, right? It's going to be not something really big, but remember what I said, you kind of like give yourself a little bit delay if you need to kind of like really make a decision, because jumping the gun is not the best advice over here. And the only 3 that you got here is the Hangman. So it's really telling you, just, you know, sacrifices are always going to be extremely beneficial for you this year, right? As long as like somebody's not obviously taking a huge, you know, advantage of you, and that kind of like really wouldn't work. Now you're getting a house number 9, which is kind of like talking about simply expansion and exploration, and so it can talk about travel and religion, publishing, law. Obviously a little bit stuck over here. Maybe you have been dealing with something that is kind of like tricky, where you couldn't move, and maybe this is why you're going all of this thinking thoughts. Should I go back with a partner? Am I being rejected? Am I being accepted? There is like this feeling of stuckness, which is this entire year asking you to kind of go down, deep down and connect. Maybe somebody is just like really not opening their hands toward you. Like this closed fists also to me tells me about somebody's being very, very stubborn. But fret not. This is also clearing. Look, we have this like Ace of Swords, and this is in a spiritual life. So again, it's going back to meditate, solitude, breathe, spend time on your own, kind of like figure things out, because things actually will kind of clarify. This is also talking about your friends and groups and goals and aspirations, and this is kind of like something where I told you, like, your family and your friends is going to be the highlight this year, very much so. And this is kind of like a victory, and there is like a both in love and in friendship. And look at this pretty heart that we have here as well in this deck. So again, you have that heart motive. So what I didn't cover over here is like that career. I kind of like mentioned to you that it could be somebody who maybe is a little bit unreliable, let's put it that way, or maybe you are going to kind of like send a scent of an unreliable. You'll have to pay a little bit more attention to work and figure out which things are staying, or if you're staying at this job or not. It's even possible that some of you will be shifting, that you'll be spending, and this can be seen looking at your environment and going to say, okay, I did lots of sacrifices, I will work long hours, I do that, and the time for you to do something for me comes and you cut my hours. Hello. It is going to be sort of like looking at things very, very realistically and trying to see where you go from there. So that's very, very spiritual house. I told you, finally everything is falling in place. You're having this Eight of Pentacles. This is kind of looking in the details, and that's about that solitude. That's about, okay, what do I need to do next? You're not going to make these big plans. What do I do in 10 years or next 9 years? You're going to go, remember, with the flow. It is kind of like, what do I need to do right now, today? What do I need to do, give to my family today? What can I give to my friends today? And how can I actually function that I also serve myself? So it's going to be really good, guys. Remember, again, it's going to be lots of positioning, letting go of things that are not working anymore or where you're not invited, but also reaching this consensus of giving yourself like really selflessly and creating a completely new process for you. And this new phase, I really love what I see, like this whole love coming in your life. This could be a new cycle of 9 years that is going to really be dominated with love. So let me take Lenormand so we can also see this all in timelines and maybe be able to pinpoint this a little bit better. Oh my gosh, Safi really, really wants you. Now there are lots of cards. Come on, Safi. Come on, girl. Let's read Aries. My dear Aries, I actually really like what I see, because I see the gentleman and I see the lady. Both of them are being significators, right? So we can actually figure out lots of things. And I don't know if she stopped that recording. Hopefully she didn't. So there is like the heart that is again coming, like it's like in that vicinity, it's like over there, but it's also realizing like the children are important, right? And I think everything is going to come before your work. So yes, you might actually change the job, you might actually go in a new direction, you actually might also buy a new house or move. It's going to be really, really interesting. It's going to be not so much traveling other than for work. That's kind of like this big oversight that I see. Now, with Lenormand, we also have houses, and this is a little bit more complex than astrology because there are 36 cards, as this is Grand Tableau, and we have 36 houses that are actually really coming to play. So look at this. The gentleman and the lady, both of the significators can be you, and it could have been dealing with somebody who was underhanded. Maybe it was competition at work of some kind of like form. Look at this karmic thing. Did I not tell you that would be that master card? Remember how we saw that master kind of like feeling of entrapment? That is also going to be very important to look. I guess it could work be related to what you do, especially more so if you are self-employed. And that could mean contractor, that could mean that you are working on a commission, something where sort of like you don't have guaranteed hourly wage, right? So something really needs to kind of like refinish. Remember, we had this like judgment card that kind of like it was this kind of like moving forward. We had a world card that was like a little bit circular. So we have like these two cards actually combined in one, which is really, really important. This fish is falling in the house of the dog, right? Which you have it here. The dog is always talking about loyalty. And look at that. Who is important to me in my life? Who are the people who kind of like really bring this luck to me? And who are the people I need to cut off? Because the bouquet is falling in the house of scythe, right? It's kind of like really, really important. But the scythe is usually a very, very bad card. And so is the mountain. But check this one out. The scythe is cutting the mountain. So two negative things are making it neutral, right? So there's cutting off the problems of something that was generating problems. This is again about these paths. Remember what I said, when you kind of like go in a direction that is not necessarily giving you fruits, or you know that maybe you shouldn't be going in that, it is very, very important to acknowledge that, because that's going to be something where you really don't want to go, right? So this is also in the house of the crossroads. So it's going to be really clear decision which you are taking, and it can really, really be in relationship to work, because the moon and the fish can really, really talk about the work, and this is the work house as well. So it might be that you've been working export import kind of a thing, or you will consider doing that, or it's going to be something that is having branches overseas, or something health related. That kind of like all is going to be very important for you this year. So talking about the karma, because between these two significators there are like few others that are really also important that we have to take in account. These are the letter, the fish, the bear, the mice, the snake, the cross, the dog, and the sun. And then it's also going to be the child. So because this is in the house of the man and this is in the house of the woman, and either of them can be your significator, right? Like this entire cluster is really important for me to really look at. Because look at this, there is the anchor, there's a crossroad. So this is like that motion that we have seen. You're going forward in one quarter, but then you're really thinking, okay, how do I go about that? How do I really move forward without negatively affecting everybody around me, right? It could be a little bit of the finances that I told you, just like I told you before, that you might have unexpected expenses of some kind of like sort, and it could be something that is connecting with licenses. It also, I see somebody maybe who is finalizing their divorce, and as a result they'll actually have less. You know, it's always really tough adjustment when we leave a parent's home and we can only afford a little apartment. This is also a big adjustment when you kind of like leave a big relationship and now actually really want to go into something else. It affects the money, but it's also going to kind of like give you this time to reposition yourself differently this year. Because this person here is kind of really interesting. That's where you meet, and she is in the house of the ring, right? Which is actually coming up here again, and it is in the house of the anchor. So I actually do see somebody releasing themselves from previous commitments, which could be like something as serious as marriage, and hence this would actually signify the end of the marriage. This also can signify end of the job, or there is like some contractual thing that is just like simply stopping. And this is because, remember how I said there will be sacrifices that need to be made, and it is something that is going to have a very long-term impact, and it's going to include other people. And I can definitely see this love, because the sun card is like that card of family, and the garden is the card of family, and the garden is also connecting with a cross because it is in the house of a cross. So this really means garden talks about places where people meet, where people chit chat. So there's like something maybe that in that respect is going to shift, is going to be really different, and it's kind of like going to be really hard how to determine to move forward. So as I said, you will actually go 3 steps forward and maybe 1 step back, but it's not going to be step back. It's going to be that hangman where you're really readjusting yourself how to go about that. You see, if you see that something is a drain on your finances, right, maybe you have been talked into or sweet talked into something or made a wrong buying decision, you'll be actually correcting the course, and you will be kind of figuring out in which direction to go to do it better, because there is like this essence of rider, right? So because I told you you're in the year number 9, and look at that, interestingly enough, you have a 9 right next to you over here. Then you have 27, and 2 and 7 is 9, like I mean circling you here, right? So here is like 38, that 8. So there is like the 8 and 9 final phases of some kind of like decision. What makes me happy? What makes me unhappy? What is basically eroding my happiness? And I really think you're going to figure out that like some small things, like just daily things, and that's why you're going to be paying lots of attention to sort of like how daily you process things. Remember this last thing, you know, paying attention to the details, kind of like making sure that like I mean you don't spread yourself too thin, but you also that you address everybody around you, that they have their space and they have their room and they have their feeling of being respected in everything. Now, I really love what I see here as well. So this is the house of the man. So this man, if you're a lady and there's like somebody who's coming in your life, it could be somebody who actually has a child. But the child to me also means something else, because this is actually number 13, and then we have the birds, it is number 12, which is also kind of connecting there as well, right? So this is kind of like about maybe somebody who has been in therapy. Maybe you have been in therapy with your partner. Maybe there was like some kind of like things that really didn't go forward in a way you really wanted. Maybe they have been a bad partner for this person. Maybe they, when you met them, they were telling you all kinds of bad things about this person, but the truth was that actually they had their own share in this. So maybe what you might be dealing is like somebody who actually, remember how I saw the guilt and fear, who actually is going through that stuff and it's affecting you, and maybe you're feeling guilty as well that maybe you broke up somebody's marriage over here. But this actually simply can talk about work, an interview as I see it over here, and something going on. Beware if you're doing the interview through someone, because someone might actually think they're kind of like giving you a good reference, but in turn is going to kind of be more of gossip. It could be something that will come through that it's not going to be very beneficial. So be very careful how you frame and how much you really say to people who are maybe putting you in contact with the other people, because it could be simply also that some other person is going to be saying things about you and be kind of like very damaging. In any case, I see lots of meetings, lots of back and forth communications, and lots of kind of like, in which direction do I go? How do I really go from there, right? It's going to be really multiple decisions and almost like several conversations at once. It looks like there are a few people that are affected in this case. And remember how I said to you that I feel it's going to be friend and family year? Well, there is this bear over here. You're meeting in the bear, and bear is about that protectiveness. And every significator here, the snake, the fox, the gentleman, and the lady is meeting in that house. So it's going to be question about money, but the bear is like really talking about long-term things. So there is like something here that will be coming in your life. Remember how I said you kind of like attracting that positive energy, this positive spark in your life. And it can be something that's going to last, or you will be seeing sort of like next 10-15 years kind of like down the road, and you're going to feel really loving about that. For some, this might mean moving, and that's going to be really, really hard. I actually don't see moving this year yet, but I do see that indecisions are going to come to an end, and it's going to start feeling clear and clarity. And part of that is like communicating with this person. It's almost like not burning your bridges and kind of like making sure things are going, because here there is a partner who kind of like have been going through things and who is actually very innocent, which could be really you. And this is also about trust. It's also about loyalty. It's also about let's move forward as a team, right? The writer is in the house of the garden, that can talk about a new partner, new dating, new love, which we have seen. It can actually really reflect to that. So that's going to be in January, February. It will be March, in the March of the next year. So as I said, it again overlaps with your birthday period. It's going to be things that will really kind of like shine and put this highlight. To some essence, because the Lilith is here connecting with the heart, and Lilith is in the house of the tree, which is interestingly, and the tree is in the house of the heart. So you see these three cards are actually connecting. This is really talking about that the new relationship is going to be so healthy. And that's really, really important, because you know, people have these good intentions, right, to go in a relationship, but they never know how things will really, really work out. And this is really talking about, you know, something new, or relatively new. The child could be that somebody who is showing up is somebody who you knew already. But this also can talk about a relatively new relationship. So you didn't necessarily date this person before, or it was sort of like, hey, you kind of like figure out your stuff, and then kind of like we can talk about that. The child also talks about, and that's what I see, that kind of like it can be you, also this male kind of like significator, thinking small in terms of, okay, I'm not making big plans. When I was making big plans, how did that end up? I'm making small plans, and let's make just like small steps forward, right? And small steps forward it is. It's going to be something beneficial. It's all of a sudden going with the flow is going to get somewhere. The ring is in the house of the anchor, because I really don't think that you will really need to spell things out. Oh, you need to do that, you need to do that. It's going to be self-evident that something that is coming is going to be commitment worthy, commitment ready. And yes, some of you might decide to actually say even yes to that, and that can happen April, May of next year, somewhere around this time. And that's for those of you who actually are dealing with somebody from the past. That kind of like time frame is going to be very, very important. In that same time frame, there are going to be decisions related to your work, what is really, really important. That person is somehow like having the idea about it. So this could be engagement kind of a thing. This also can be a wedding, because here the house of a woman is the clover, is this kind of like luck about things going on. Now, the whip in the house of the sun is kind of tricky, but I really think here it makes actually a good news. And this kind of like really talks about, you know, a lots of passion. Remember how I was talking about this, like sex drives? I'm seeing this all over again. Yes, it might be some kind of like hurdle, and it looks like this new adjustment. It might be a little bit rough, and that's again that hangman that I've seen, that is really talking about needing to make that sacrifice, needing to kind of like figure things out in how to do it. But it's kind of like, in the essence, the sacrifice is like so willingly made because there are other people that are involved, and you know it's going to benefit family and everybody, not just you. So my dear Aries, I really think that sounds really good. Let me grab this deck as well, so we can just focus on one thing, because there are so many messages, and you guys have the unlimited access as long as you have this link. So make sure you come by and you check this like through different points of the year. few times in advance right now to kind of prepare yourself, mark some dates on the calendar, and then later, and just to see, these were these two paths, which one should I take, kind of a thing. But if from all the messages you need to absorb one that is sort of like one of those things you write on your fridge and you make sure you read it and understand it every day, then this is going to be this card that I'm going to pull for you now. So let's see, Aries, what is the main message they really need to learn in 2019? Sacred Pool. That's kind of like that still lake. It kind of reminds me of this, which is kind of like disconnect from the others, give some space to yourself. So let me read this for you. The world is a reflection of your thoughts, feelings, and beliefs. Embody the love you wish to see in the world. And here we go again. You guys, when it's raining, it's pouring for you. And this is what it says. When you look into the mirror, you like what you see? The Sacred Pool card asks that you focus on self-love and self-esteem. We are all works in progress, so a detached self-examination made with rigorous honesty is called for now. Reflect by the Sacred Pool and be at peace with yourself. Can you see how far you've come and how magical your life is? Do you notice the spark of the divine shining through your eyes? When you're conscious that you are the embodiment of spirit, it becomes easier to respect yourself and act in good conscience. Then you will reap the greatest rewards. Your unique service to the world is not only needed, but celebrated. See the love within you, and you will know that if you cast it upon the waters, it will return to you tenfold. Be at peace, for you are beautiful and loved. Act with surety and confidence, and success shall be yours, whatever your inquiry and whatever you desire. So my dear Aries, what a lovely, lovely reading. I'm certainly picking up Aries partner this year. Anybody else is eliminated so far? Kidding. Thank you guys very much for your order and for your patronage. It's always appreciated, and you know that I love you. Until the next time, I wish you all the best. Love you.